Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning to this, the Monday edition of Vuka Nazo, your weekday news analysis show. We help you begin your news day here as we come to you every weekday from 7 a.m. with me, Usihle Ngobese, your host, aka Big Daddy Liberty. With that being said, remember, if you want to get in touch with us here at Vuka Nazo, find us on our website at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. Of course, remember, we help you start your news day, but we can only do that with your support. So as you visit our website, please scroll to the bottom and contribute, please, 100 Rand a month to the show. It definitely helps us keep going, and indeed it helps me hire the editors and some of the writers that we now have on the show. With that being said, with us beginning your news day, join our friends over at the Daily Friend from Monday to Thursday at 1:30 p.m. where they'll help you cap off and end your news day with solid analysis you'll get nowhere else. With that being said, enough with the jibber jabber. It's a Monday morning, so let's get straight into the news. All right, we begin in Durban, or eThekwini municipality, where a rather sour rift and spat has come to the fore, come to the public eye between the current mayor, of course, who's from the ANC, Olisi Kaunda, in a vicious spat with his deputy mayor. Yeah, that's right, his deputy mayor, his second in command. Those two not seemingly getting along at the moment. His second in command, of course, being from the ABC, a different party from the ANC. The leader, of course, being Upilani Mavundla. Why is the spat happening, and what is at the center of it? Well, a particular cleanup campaign that saw the deputy mayor being at the forefront, working with some famous soccer players and using his image as a, let's call it, PR poster child for this particular PR campaign, has drawn the anger and the ire of the ANC's mayor, Kaunda, with him sending a viciously worded WhatsApp message, that WhatsApp message leaking to the media. Now, I'm going to read from a piece in The Independent which covered this question and asked rightly, who is the boss in eThekwini? I'll read you the translation of it, of course, as you saw on the screen there. I mentioned that WhatsApp leaking to the media, and it reads really as follows. Now, translated, of course, it reads, open quote, this is Olisi Kaunda, the mayor, addressing the deputy mayor from the ABC, Upilani Mavundla, saying, you still carry on with your nonsense I've warned you about. So you don't listen, because you could have done this thing using the mayor's photo. I've respected you a lot. You think you are president of the ABC in the council, but you are just a deputy mayor, and you are supposed to accept that and learn to live with it. This is for the last time I'm talking to you about this nonsense, but if you want, you can carry on. You must learn to accept and be prepared to be led, since you are not going to become a mayor with only 2 seats. If you still want to be a deputy and to avoid being taken through a code of conduct, you must remove this nonsense next to the municipality logo, or you will see what happens to the people who do not listen like yourself. End of quote. You'll excuse me for adding a little bit of drama. I don't know if he talks like that, but fudge it. It was funny. But indeed, the threat he's making, though, isn't funny, insofar as, remember who he's talking to. This is the mayor of eThekwini talking to his deputy mayor, someone who he should be in lockstep with, and indeed on the same team with. The question now on most Durbanites' minds, as the ABC itself refuses to be drawn on this matter, is this rift one which is going to compromise service delivery in the city even further? I say even further because the state of eThekwini is an absolute shambolic mess. Indeed, the very campaign that Mavundla is receiving a tongue lashing over is a sorely needed one which cleans up the city, which is an absolute pigsty. But with that being said, if they can't come to an amicable working relationship on something as basic as a cleanup campaign, woe is us who live in eThekwini and are wondering if there's leadership on bigger issues in the city. As I said, ABC not wanting to be drawn into this necessarily, with Vuka having confirmed receiving this message, but the party spokesperson is quoted in that same Independence piece as saying the following. Now, the ABC Secretary General Uphumelele Phahla confirmed that the party had received the message and said it was preparing a comprehensive response, with the eThekwini municipality spokesperson Umsawake Maisela denying any knowledge of the message. How's that for selective amnesia? End of quote. So again, the question is, are we seeing a breakdown in service delivery simply because the politicians in this country are more invested in their egos and photo opportunities and whose photo is at the face of which campaign, instead of getting down to the actual basics of service delivery, which are sorely needed in eThekwini? All right, I take you to Cape Town now, indeed to Parliament, where was there not a big gefuffle in that institution, where opposition parties and civil society are up in arms at the fact that politicians have passed the Electoral Amendment Bill. Now, you remember, of course, a lot of pressure back a few months ago, indeed just maybe over a year ago, with a lot of South Africans, ordinary South Africans and civic society organizations mounting a big pressure campaign for hashtag direct elections. You remember that? Well, that campaign, that pressure, if you will, eventually culminated in the Constitutional Court agreeing with South Africans and saying, yes, Parliament must pass legislation that basically allows for that, for ordinary citizens to be able to stand for Parliament, a parliamentary seat, without having to be a part of the political grifting parties in this country, regardless of which party politics it is. And that for me is a great idea. It gives you more power, and also it means that when voting time comes in Parliament, for example, on issues that matter to us, you break up the monopoly of these political parties to vote as blocks and actually shake things up by having someone you represented vote on an issue the way you want to be represented. So that, of course, was a laudable objective of direct elections, and indeed having individuals and independent candidates be able to stand for election. But, big but, what have the politicians in Parliament decided? Well, in effectively passing this Electoral Amendment Bill, it kind of makes a mockery of the intention of having independent candidates by making it more harder, more difficult for independent candidates to be voted in. Now, the write-up to this is in EWN, and as I mentioned, civil society is up in arms. I'll get to them in a moment, but the write-up in EWN mentions the fact that opposition parties who objected to the bill include the Democratic Alliance, the Inkatha Freedom Party, the Vryheidsfront, plus the Congress of the People, COPE that is, and the ACDP, good for them. They argue that the amendments will not level the playing field and instead will disadvantage independent candidates. However, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi believes that they're conflating issues. Now, how is it, perhaps you're wondering, will it make it difficult for independent candidates to run? Well, I have Herman Pretorius, who of course is from the Institute for Race Relations. Remember, I did mention civil society are up in arms on this, and he explains it quite nicely as follows.
The Electoral Amendment Bill is a sloppy and dangerous piece of legislation that can fundamentally put at risk our democracy. The National Assembly have now passed the bill. It's going to the National Council of Provinces. If it passes through the NCOP, it goes to the desk of the President. If the President signs it, then we're into a bit of a constitutional crisis, because the bill's constitutionality will be challenged for breaking the in general proportion rule of Section 105 of the Constitution. This bill makes it practically impossible for independent candidates to reach Parliament, as the Constitutional Court instructed Parliament to legislate for. This makes it that independent candidates need almost 100,000 votes for a seat, while parties can get away with around 40,000 votes. Then the votes are redistributed, and that is done disproportionately to benefit the big parties. This is dangerous legislation, it's anti-democratic, and it must be stopped.
Well, there you have it. Again, you hear that it often, the current Electoral Amendment Bill, places a greater threshold on independent candidates to actually get seats versus the shifty political parties that made it or kept it as an easier burden, rather, for them to do. And I want to mention here, as I quickly read from the IRR's Reject the Electoral Amendment Bill campaign, where they rightly mentioned that in addition to making it harder for independent candidates, the new electoral bill could also result in a scenario in which a party wins less than 50% of the votes, yet still secures more than 50% of seats available in the legislature. This outcome, they say, is unacceptable. And indeed, I would fully agree that not only is it unacceptable, it likely will not pass constitutional muster. This has to be challenged in the courts in this country. And as soon as it goes past the NCOP, remember that's the next stage now of where this bill is. It's passed in the National Assembly. Now it has to go through the National Council of Provinces and eventually for it to become law, be signed by the president. And indeed, we'll await to see how this particular piece of legislation plays out after that process. But I can tell you this, and I'll commit to this here on the show. If this is signed by the president, I'll be the first to lobby any and all civil society organizations to challenge this in the courts. I'll be an active part of that. Broke as I am, but I will put my mouth indeed where my actions are, or my actions where my mouth are instead, and back any organization that is willing to challenge this in court, because it fundamentally corrupts. This is politicians and the political elites fundamentally perverting the letter and the spirit of what this law should have been. It corrupts the fundamental letter and spirit of what you wanted, which was #DirectElections, to have people from your community, people who you readily identify with, away from the party politicians, to be able to stand for government and indeed stand for parliament rather, and to potentially even stand for government in your name. So we'll support any organization, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Hopefully the IRR will be doing exactly that. But in any event, we'll stand with anybody who takes this to court. All right, folks, that's where we end it for this morning here on Vuka Nazo. This is the Monday edition. Remember, we come to you weekdays from 7 a.m., so you don't have to wake up at 7, guys, in order to catch the show. Watch it whenever you please. But remember, as you do so, hit that like button and, of course, share whether you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube. And if, by the way, you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so that you don't miss when the show is out and about. And with that being said, remember, you can find us on our website. That's at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. And guys, please consider becoming a contributor, monthly contributor to the show by going to the website, scroll to the bottom, and you'll find a payment method which suits you. With that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow on Vuka Nazo.